When a buyer is finally ready to spend a significant amount of money on a problem that you could solve, they do something that should scare you. They don't research the whole market. They don't even give everybody a fair shot. They reach into their own memory, pull out 3 or 4 names they already know, and that becomes their shortlist. Then they choose from that list. Everyone else never gets a chance. This is one piece of a bigger system that I call the conversion ecosystem, and every video here builds towards it. You'll find more information in the description. This is the biggest and most overlooked fact in marketing. The decision gets narrowed before it even begins. It narrows down to whoever's already in the buyer's mind. Getting on that shortlist before the search starts is the whole game. I call it the buyer's positioning. If you run a business, especially as a founder or a professional service, this shortlist has already been forming in your buyer's head. It forms quietly long before they start looking for someone like you. You will never see it happen. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how shortlists form. I'll show you why being on one matters more than almost anything else you do, and I'll show you the exact steps to get there before the moment comes. You can't argue your way onto this list after the fact. I spent over 27 years in B2B marketing. The businesses that win the most work are almost never the most talented ones in the room. They are simply the ones already on the list before a buyer starts looking. Let's start with why buyers build shortlists in the first place. And understanding why tells you how to get onto one. The world has too much to take in. For almost anything a buyer needs, there are dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of options. No person can weigh all of them. It would take forever and it would freeze you up. So the brain does what it always does with too many choices. It narrows down the field fast before it ever starts judging anything. The shortlist is that narrowing. It's the brain's defense against too many choices. Instead of looking at the whole market, the buyer cuts it down to a handful of options that feel safe and doable and judges on those. This is not being lazy. It's not being foolish. It's necessary. Nobody could function if they truly weighed every single option and every single decision. The shortlist is what makes deciding possible at all. Here's what matters for you. The shortlist exists to cut down that overload, so it gets built fast and early, often before the buyer does any research. The buyer needs to go down from too many options to a manageable few fast, so they can lean on whatever is already in their mind. The shortlist forms almost instantly straight from memory. Only then does the real research happen, and only inside that small pre-picked group. This changes everything about where competition actually happens. Most businesses think they're already competing during the buyer evaluation, but the evaluation only happens among that shortlist. The real competition, the one that decides whether you get evaluated at all, happens earlier, at the moment the shortlist forms. And that competition is not won by being the best. It's won by being present in the buyer's mind when they reach to build that list. So the shortlist is not a minor stage of buying. It's the gate to the whole process. Making the shortlist and you're in the real competition. Miss it and nothing else you do matters because you'll never be evaluated at all. This early hidden competition is a piece of what I call the silent race. The fight for a buyer's trust that runs entirely before contact. Everything in this video is about making sure that you're on this list. Now, let's look at exactly how a buyer puts their shortlist together because each source tells you something about how to get on it. The biggest source by far is memory. When a need shows up, the buyer's first move is to recall who they already know for this. The names that come to mind form that core list. This is why being remembered before the need arises is a foundation of shortlist positioning. If you're not in memory, you're not on the first draft of that list, and the first draft is usually most of the list. The second source is a small amount of trusted input, usually a referral or two from someone the buyer respects. A trusted recommendation can put a name on the shortlist even if the buyer didn't already know it, because it borrows the trust from the person that's referring. This is powerful but limited. It can only reach buyers connected to people you know. It can't be your whole strategy, but it's a real path to get onto the list. The third source is some searching online, but here's the key thing about it. Buyers rarely use search to discover totally unknown options and add them to a real shortlist. So even search tends to favor those who are already known or already visible enough to surface easily. Search confirms more than it discovers. Put these together and you have a clear pattern show up. Every major source of the shortlist favors who's already known. Memory favors the remembered. Referrals favor those connected to your network. Even search favors the already visible. The shortlist is being built almost entirely from existing awareness, which means the work of getting on it happens long before the buyer starts building it. You earn your place by being known and trusted in advance, not by doing something clever in the moment. This is a familiarity advantage at work. Known consistently beats better, but unknown. And this is why so many excellent businesses are confused by their lack of opportunities. They assume when a buyer is ready, a fair process will surface the best options, which include them. But there's no fair process. There's a shortlist being built from existing awareness, and if you have not built that awareness in advance, you're simply not in the running, no matter how good you are. There's a sharper way to think about shortlist positioning, and it clarifies everything. Being on the shortlist is really about being the name that surfaces when a specific trigger fires in the buyer's mind. That trigger is the problem. When the buyer thinks of the problem, certain names come up. Positioning is about being one of those names, and ideally the first. This means general awareness is not enough. The buyer does not reach out for whoever they vaguely know. They reach out for whoever is tied to the specific problem in their memory. So the goal is not to just be known. It's to be known for the exact problem the buyer is trying to solve, so tightly linked to it that thinking of the problem makes them think of you. That is what gets you onto the list the instant the trigger fires. Think about how this works in your own life. For any given problem, a name or two probably comes to mind almost automatically. A particular person for tax questions, a particular brand for a certain product. Those names own the trigger for the problem in your mind. They didn't earn that spot the moment you needed them. They earned it through consistent contact over time, so the problem and the name became linked. That link is shortlist positioning at its purest. So the real positioning question is this. When your buyer thinks of a specific problem to solve, does your name surface? For most businesses, the honest answer is no, because they have never on purpose linked themselves to a specific problem in the market's mind. They are loosely known for a broad category, which means they surface for nothing in particular and end up on no one's shortlist. The fix is to own a trigger. Choose a specific problem you want to be the name for, and then consistently tie yourself to it over and over again in everything you do until that link is automatic. A little bit known for many things, you want to be the name that comes up for one important problem. That focus link is what wins the shortlist because it makes you the automatic answer the moment the trigger goes off. Let me drive home a point that talented people resist because it's uncomfortable but freeing once you accept it. Being on the shortlist matters more than being the best. A good enough option on the list beats a better option that's not, every single time, because the better option is never evaluated. You can't win a competition that you've never entered in, and the shortlist is the entry. This is hard for excellent businesses to accept because they have built their identity around being the best, and they believe that quality should win. But quality can only win among the options that get evaluated, and only the shortlist gets evaluated. If your quality is not on the list, it is invisible, and invisible quality loses to visible, good enough option every single time. The market does not reward the best option. Instead, it rewards the best option that made the list. Missing it entirely is what I call silent elimination. Getting cut before the conversation ever starts without ever knowing there was a list to begin with. This is exactly the kind of gap the conversion ecosystem is built to close. More on that below. Now, I'm not telling you that quality doesn't matter. It matters enormously, just at a different stage. Quality wins you the deal once you're on the shortlist and being evaluated. Positioning gets you onto the shortlist so your quality can do its work. Both are necessary, but they happen in order. First, you gotta make the list, then your quality wins within it. Most businesses Focus on the second part, but ignore the first, which is why their quality never gets a chance. Here's the shift that should change your priorities. If you're a high quality business struggling to win enough work, your problem is almost certainly not your quality. It's your positioning. You're losing at the shortlist stage before quality is ever considered. The single best thing you could do is not get better at your craft, is to get onto more shortlists. So the quality that you have can finally be seen and chosen. So stop trying to out quality your way past a positioning problem. The best in the market loses to consistently known. Quality is not the issue, getting evaluated is. You need to get on that list first, then let your quality win. So, how do you actually position yourself onto shortlists? It comes down to 3 levers, each one you could pull on purpose. The first lever is presence before need. You have to be present in your market all the time, building awareness long before the buyer is ready. Because the shortlist forms from existing memory, the awareness has to already be there when the need shows up. This means steady visibility over time, not bursts of marketing when you happen to need sales. You're making deposits into your market's memory steadily so the balance is there when a buyer reaches in. The second lever is a specific association, which we covered earlier, linking yourself tightly to a particular problem you want to surface for. This is all about focus. Instead of being loosely known for a broad category, you become the clear name for one important problem. Everything you put into the market should reinforce that single link so the connection between the problem and your name becomes automatic. Depth of association beats breadth of awareness. The third lever is familiarity and trust. It's not enough to surface in memory. You have to surface as the name the buyer feels good about and trusts enough to actually include. So you build familiarity through repeated, useful contact over time until your name feels safe, known, and credible. This is what turns surfacing into actually making the list. Notice how these 3 levers reinforce each other. Presence before need builds awareness. Specific association makes that awareness fire for the right trigger. Familiarity and trust make the surface name the one the buyer actually includes. Pull all 3 levers consistently and you become the name that surfaces first for the right problem with enough trust to make the list. Pull none of them and you stay absent no matter how good you are. All these 3 share one key feature. They're all built in advance over time through consistency. You can't pull any of these levers at the moment the buyer is ready to decide. They're the result of steady work being done long before. This is why shortlist positioning is really about playing the long game of staying present, focused, and trusted. So you're already in a position whenever the buyer's moment arrives. Let me be direct about what it costs you to ignore shortlist positioning, because the cost is huge and almost entirely invisible. If you're not deliberately positioning yourself onto shortlists, you are absent from most of them, which means you are absent from most of the buying happening in your market. Opportunity after opportunity completes without you. You didn't lose, you were never on the list to begin with. And because this happened silently, you misread it. You experienced a market that feels more quiet than it should, and you blame demand, the economy, your pricing, or anything but the real cause. Meanwhile, the real problem is that you're not on enough shortlists. You go unaddressed, so it keeps happening quarter after quarter. You work hard at everything except the one thing that you actually need to fix. The cruelest part is that this hits excellent businesses especially hard. The better you are, the more you tend to believe your quality will be recognized on its own, and the less you invest on positioning. So your superior quality sits unseen, off shortlists, losing to weaker competitors who simply made the list. Your excellence becomes the kind of trap. It lulls you into skipping the positioning work that would let anyone actually experience that excellence. But here's the encouraging flip side. Because most of your competitors are also neglecting deliberate shortlist positioning, the field is wide open. The businesses that consistently position themselves, present themselves before needed, and are tied to one problem end up on shortlist after shortlist, while the competitors wonder why the market is quiet. Shortlist positioning is a massive underused advantage, precisely because so few people do it on purpose. The cost of ignoring this is silent loss of most of your potential business. And the reward for embracing it is becoming the name that consistently makes the list while better but unpositioned competitors stay invisible. The choice is not whether shortlists decide the market. They do. The choice is whether you position yourself onto them on purpose or leave it to chance and lose by default. Putting it all together, buyers don't evaluate the whole market. They build tiny short memory, fast and early, to escape overwhelm and then choose only from that list. Is the gate to the entire buying process. And it's almost entirely built from existing awareness, which means the competition to get on it is won in advance, not in the moment. Being on the list beats being the best because the best option is never on the list. Being on the list beats being the best because the best option not on the list never gets evaluated. You earn your place by pulling 3 levers consistently over time. Presence before need, specific association with a problem you solve, and enough familiarity and trust to be the name the buyer actually includes. Do this and you become the name that services when the trigger fires. So stop assuming your quality will get you considered. It will not unless you're on the list. Position yourself deliberately and in advance to be on the shortlist before the search begins, and let the quality that you have already win the deals that it deserves. This fits into a larger system I call the conversion ecosystem, and every video in here builds on it with more depth available in the description. If you like this video, make sure you watch this next one. And always remember, the most visible, the most valuable, the most trusted business in your market wins. And that's the whole point of the conversion ecosystem, is to build a system that makes you all 3.